And I just want to welcome everyone today to our session on leveraging Power Pages and Copilot for intelligent self-service scenarios. And we're going to take a look today on how to align to customer channel preferences, reduce costs, and do more with less, provide 24/7 availability, and provide scale during unexpected events. And we aim to provide a digital event today that respects all individuals. So we ask that everyone assist in providing a welcoming and safe environment for everyone. So the next one, Richa, we bring 3 of these events to our customers every month. So if you want to suggest a topic, go ahead and drop that in the chat right now. And we will take consideration of that in our upcoming sessions. And then also to minimize any distractions or potential background noise today, we're going to leverage a chat for questions while the presenters are presenting. So go ahead, post your questions there and we will get them answered. If there's time at the end, we'll unmute the lines and take live questions as well. And then lastly, I will send an email to everyone who registered today with the recording and the deck that's being used in the presentation. So that email will come from Deb Victor. If you don't wish to receive those in the future, just go ahead and reply back to me and I'll take you off that distribution going forward. So I want to thank Doug Fernie and Richa Sharma for being our presenters today on this amazing topic that most state and local government customers are super interested in because we all have this use case in servicing our constituents. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Doug and Richa. Take it away.
Thanks, Deb. Hi, everybody. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. So today we'll be talking about leveraging intelligent self-service through both Power Pages and Copilot Studio as well. So my name is Richa. I'm a business applications technical specialist with the state and local government team in Microsoft. Doug, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Doug Fernie. I am also a technical specialist within BizApps, and I cover the state of Texas. And my background is actually contact centers. Been doing them for almost a decade and a half.
Thanks, Doug. So today we have overarching topic is self-service. So we will begin with defining what self-service means. And then we'll take a closer look at the tools that help you conduct self-service. So Power Pages, we'll do an overview and then an overview of Copilot Studio IVR as well. And then Doug is going to demo out so you can see how things look like within the platform. And this is a good time for Q&A as well. And then as Deb mentioned, you can ask questions within chat. We have people monitoring the chat for us. And then at the end, if we have time, we will open up the mics as well. So without further ado, just a few little tidbits that we learned about self-service. So according to Harvard Business Review, across all industries, 81% of all customers already attempt to take care of matters by themselves before reaching out to a live representative. So they're already conducting some self-service. And then according to a report done by Microsoft, we found that 90% of customers, again, across industries globally, expect organizations to have an online self-service presence, a portal for customer support. And then they've also found that more and more people are already familiar with the concept of self-service, with 77% of consumers reporting that they have already used a portal. So with this, we know that there is familiarity with self-service and there's a desire. People want to be able to answer questions on their own or perform some actions by themselves before reaching out to a human agent. So in the journey of a citizen, since we're talking the government space, a citizen's journey in service can look many different ways, but usually it may start from the self-service portion. So people have questions, maybe they want to perform some actions, they will try to figure it out on their own. And in the case where maybe they need to reach out to an agent, they will get transferred over to a service agent. And in this scenario, they might use tools such as Dynamics 365 customer service to help them. The agents can use these tools to help find answers to questions quickly and more efficiently. And then in scenarios where you might want to dispatch some field technicians to troubleshoot, to go on site, we also provide tools such as field service. But for today, we are focusing on that first part of the citizen journey, which is self-service. So what is self-service? Again, it is where citizens can find answers and resolve issues on their own, but they might also be able to perform some actions and stuff without the assistance from a representative. Generally, self-service is 24/7, so people should be able to have access to information and solutions. No, it doesn't matter whether it's midnight or the weekend, 24/7 access. And this access, the self-service sources could be anything from an FAQ to knowledge-based articles to intelligent chatbots to virtual assistants or even online forums where they could find community with other like-minded people. So according to Gartner, there are these 11 key foundational capabilities that for a service organization to be successful in meeting their goals and needs of a self-service provider, these are the capabilities that they should be able to represent. So first is usability. So if a tool is not, or an experience is not usable, it's not easy to navigate, it's not going to be utilized, so there is no self-service being taking place. And then we also have community engagement. So ideally, you want to create a forum for people to engage again with other like-minded people, or see, if a question's already been asked so that they don't have to go digging for things themselves. This can also be for partner engagement, really just creating a sense of community. And then we have content, knowledge, and education. So the information that you're putting out there for self-service purposes, that needs to be high quality. And so there should also be room for feedback, so that feedback could be used to improve the content that we put out. And then case management and assisted support kind of latch in together. In scenarios where self-service tools are not quite meeting the needs of the citizen, we want to be able to provide kind of a seamless transition. And so let there be an integrated case management system where if they have a question and it needs to be created into a case, it can easily be created into a case and then transferred over to an agent to provide the support. Agent doesn't have to ask the same questions again. They can find some history of information. And the tools part, whether it is maybe a citizen wants to fill out an application, maybe they want to set up an appointment, whatever they want to do, we want to be able to provide different types of tools to meet people's needs. And then in government service agents, government agencies, we interact with a lot of people from different backgrounds. So globalization, really making sure that we can kind of provide different language needs and just meet the needs of the people who are reaching out for service. And then personalization, not everybody needs to be able to log in and find information that's pertinent to them, but over time, we have been learning that people do kind of like it if they can log into things or they can go on stuff and they see all the fluff and the outside stuff is out and only the things that are relevant to them is presented. So if they can log in and see these are the previous case interactions I had, these are the updates for me, that kind of information, if that could be provided, that would be great. Virtual customer assistants and bots. As we grow in AI across industries, we are finding more and more we want our bots to be intelligent. We want them to be able to provide interactions that are more meaningful to our citizens. And then reporting and analytics, the more analytics that we have, the more reporting we can do, we can improve the services that we provide, whether it's just a self-service or customer service in general. And then external and site search, we just want to make sure that we are using as many optimal practices as possible. So honing in a little bit more into the personalization part. So when we talk about, making sure that our citizens are getting the experience that they desire, one of the key things we want to make sure is not every citizen is going to want to get on a website. Not everybody's want to get on a phone call or a text, what have you. There are many different people and each person has their own preference. So we want to make sure that we meet them where they want to be met. So we want to provide the access to as many channel engagement as possible. So when we are providing that personalized service experience, we are also opening up the avenues for them to reach out to us, for us to reach out to them. And we're also making sure that that experience is equitable across channels. And then one more aspect for personalizing, coming back to that 24/7 part, we do want to make sure that our citizens are getting support no matter what time of day, what time of the week. And so we can leverage things such as Copilot Studio bots to build out quick and build out very quickly and easily intelligent bots that can help answer questions regarding of the time of day. So some tools that can be leveraged to promote these self-service capabilities, we've got Power Pages. So Power Pages is our enterprise-grade low-code website development tool. This is what you can use to build out these external websites that constituents or your partners or whoever you interact with can find and source information from. So we have found that Power Pages can be utilized in many different ways. These are some key scenarios that government agencies have found Power Pages to be useful for. So if you have the need to reach and serve citizens at a higher scale, you can set up a Power Pages website. So for things such as permitting and licensing, setting up community resources, announcing those PSAs or setting up registration, you can leverage Power Pages. You can also do it for citizen self-service. So if you want to provide that 24/7, you can set up applications. You can make it so that people can schedule appointments, set up service requests, report some kind of outage, what have you. And then on the other side, outside of just citizen interactions, you can also set them up for your partner operations. So if you want to provide one central spot for vendor support, onboarding, you can do so, or just general FAQs where you put out policies and regulations. And then we have found that Power Pages really help state and local governments to meet their critical needs. So in scenarios where recently with COVID-19 or with scenarios where there's some kind of natural disaster, where there is a need to rapidly build out these tools that can reach a lot of people, you can leverage Power Pages. And the sites that you build, they're intuitively designed to maintain the security and the privacy of your citizens' data. And then because this is a low-code tool, you don't have to spend a lot of resources. You can already empower your existing talent pool to utilize the tools. So you don't have to spend a lot of resources upskilling or training other people to get on board. So within the Power Pages Studio, I'm just kind of describing, you'll see a little bit more from Doug's demo, but within the Power Pages Studio, we provide a template hub. So you don't have to start from scratch. If you want to build out a website, you can find a lot of different template options. You also have a design studio. This really speaks to that low code part where instead of coding out how your website should look, you can use the Pages workspace and click buttons or drag things to design out the page the way you would like it to be. There's also a styling workspace. So if you have branding needs, you can figure out how things should be styled. You can also bring your own custom styling into the workspace. Data workspace, this is where they've made it really easy for you to connect to your data. And if you have a need to build out a new field, new form, new view, you don't have to step outside of Power Pages. You can just do all of that work within the workspace. And then for setup workspace, this is where you can find things such as identity providers. So if you want to set up authentication, if you want to look at security roles and things like that, set up workspaces within Power Pages Studio itself so you can find it all in one space. And then finally, there are so many things to learn. And if you just go out onto the internet, you can find a lot of information, but we're making it easier within the Learn Hub. You can find tutorials, you can find guides, you can find a lot of different resources to help learn Power Pages. That's on the Power Pages side. And then on the Copilot Studio IVR side, taking a little step back and looking at the history of building out the evolution of building conversational AI. First, it started with the, we really relied kind of on these vendors who specialized in building out these little bots, and those would be sold to companies. So a lot of control was given out by organizations to these vendors that are creating these products. And these bots were not actually really not always applicable to your business needs. They're kind of templatized. And then we transitioned over to the pro code side where now in-house development, so pro code developers within your organization could build out these bots. And so your organization has a little bit more control over what you're building, but a lot of your resources are getting dedicated to building this out. And then you transition over to the low-code side where tools such as Power Virtual Agent, the previous iteration, was helpful, where you can kind of join forces with both the pro code developers and your subject matter experts. You could work together to build out these bots. But now we have shifted since 2023 to the situation where now using natural language, our developers or really anybody can build out these bots. So you have kind of opened up the tools that are available to you, and it's easier and quicker to get these started. So this is kind of where Copilot Studio sits. But before I go into Copilot Studio, how do we define what a Copilot is? To us, Copilot is an intelligent AI assistant that uses generative AI and large language models to assist humans. It is an assistant, and then it assists with complex cognitive tasks. The more complex it is, the more value you can see with the Copilot. So Microsoft provides many, many different first-party Copilots. I believe we are at 47 now. That number might be shifting. But if you have the need to do your own custom Copilot, you can do so as well. And one of the tools for customizing, creating your own Copilot is Copilot Studio. So this is where it's an end-to-end system. You can go in and build your own Copilot, or you can customize those first parties or the other ones that exist. So within the Copilot Studio, these are all the different things that you are provided. So first, it is an end-to-end product. It's easy to use. Again, it really sticks to the low-code part of things where you can come in and create things without really knowing how to code. And so it's easy to design. It's easy to enhance other Copilots as well. This is also where you can interact with different types of data sources. So whether your data source is a file or an external website, or it's within Dataverse or even third-party systems, you can connect to different knowledge using generative AI. You can also create specific topics. So if you wanted to make it so that your citizens are interacting with a certain topic in a certain way, you have the ability to control that conversation. And then you can leverage generative AI within that as well. And then you can also build actions and plugins, and this is where those connectors shine again. So you can create these actions and plugins using the pre-built connectors. You can also connect with Power Automate, the other features of Power Platform. And then coming back to meeting our citizens where they're at, you have the ability to publish a Copilot Studio bot on multiple different channels. So depending on your citizens' preference, you can put it on a public website, you can put it on a Teams, you can put it on many different options, and you have the ability to publish in multiple different languages. So I think it's 20 plus languages. We're always working on making more available. And then reporting, analytics, we do want to make sure that our copilots are improving. So we do provide analytics so you can kind of get a sense of how things are performing and where you could improve upon. And then if you wanted to integrate with more AI services, you have the ability to integrate with things such as Azure AI Studio, Azure Cognitive Services, and so on. And then these are just some stories available to you. So sometimes it's easier to see what our peers are doing. So just to give some examples of how other government agencies are utilizing some of these tools, in King County, they had the challenge of they had service delivery channels, but they were often bogged down with manual paper-based processes. So it was really expensive and costly to build out custom coded websites. So they leverage the power of Power Pages to simplify and expedite their web page development. So with this, it took them 23 days to launch website, and then they had 43% in time savings. And then here's a quote from the IT services manager, Sandra, there, saying, to build the kind of custom websites that we require, with all the necessary security, it can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years using traditional code. With Power Pages, we can often go live with a site in a matter of weeks. So just really speaking to that time-saving aspect of things there. Another customer story we have is with New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. It's a executive branch state agency that serves a number of different stakeholders, so constituents, business and property owners, local governments. So they have leveraged Power Pages successfully in 13 production solutions in 4 divisional environments. So some examples of how they're using Power Pages. They have a DCA service portal for inspections, for job postings, a DC aid portal that has an eligibility screener, low-income assistance programs, a FAST portal where you can go and find some local government budget reporting, and then DCA service portal to find more foreclosures and stuff as well. And then the city of Columbus, they had a need. They have an RFQ bidding process, but they wanted to promote transparency and they wanted to provide an experience for the vendors where it's a little bit easier to navigate. There's more transparency and collaboration. So City of Columbus also leveraged Power Pages to build out a public vendor portal so that it's easier for our vendors to access an RFQ catalog and then find more streamlined registration onboarding process. And so the number on the bottom left, 5,000 RFQs were completed in 1 year with the help of the Power Pages site. And then one more customer story. This is more international, but the city of Kobe in Japan, during the COVID-19 crisis, they needed a way to get out information to their citizens. And so they leveraged Power Platform. And so a quote from Tsuyoshi Ito from City of Kobe, I could develop all these solutions within a few weeks because Microsoft Power Platform made it so easy and intuitive to do so. So with that, we have 90% reduction in calls per day. And then the average daily views of their site was over 35,000. So those are some examples of stories. We put together more stories, so we will be sending out this deck later. So if you wanted to see more examples, whether in the federal side, state and local government, or also international examples, you can access this PowerPoint and then click into the links. And then now, before we transition over to the demo side, we have a few questions for you. So if you could answer, I think the poll has been set up. So first question is, what is your current use of Power Pages for self-service? First option, in production for 1 or more sites. Second, planned, or you're just investigating, or I don't know what Power Pages is. So if you could go ahead and answer that, that would be great. Thank you. I see some answers coming in chat as well.
Richard, can I answer, or is that fair?
Go for it. Power Pages Super Guru.
So while they're answering, why don't you go ahead and skip to the next slide, and I'll kind of talk about what we're going to do for the demo.
Yep.
And the second question is, what is your current use of Copilot Studio for self-service? One or more agents, Copilots in production, planned, investigating, or what is Copilot? These are all anonymous too. We're not tracking anyone here with your questions.
Yeah,
And then,
there may be some people whose permissions and teams don't allow you to execute the poll.
yeah, yeah, there might be some permission issues to get to the poll, but go ahead and drop it in chat too if you want. And then the last question, what is your current interactive voice recognition or IVR usage? Are you using it? Yes or no? Planning? Are you researching? It's always great to hear where our customers are at so we can have a good understanding as to the maturity in some of these areas. So thank you for answering those. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Hey,
Doug.
Rich, I'm not seeing the bullet points on that slide. Is that a build out or did something go wonky on our slide?
I think it was a build
Oh,
up,
there
so I'm
we
going to
go.
go
Perfect.
ahead and build it all out for you.
That'd be great. Okay, so Rich, thank you. Great information. So from a demo perspective, what I wanted to do was to try to give you a representative sample of kind of what self-service means across Power Platform. So obviously, Power Platform has a lot of different capabilities within the platform, and I wanted to kind of highlight about 4 of these. So the use case we're going to do today, this is a hypothetical county government, loosely based on the county I live in, Collin County in Texas. So I borrowed a few things from them. But basically what we're going to walk through is we're going to walk through a scenario where I want to be able to allow people to self-serve applying for an assumed named application or certificate. If you've ever done that, it's also called doing business as. You go down to the county clerk, you fill out paperwork, pay your money, and then you can operate a business under that name. So we're going to do an online version of this, and I'll actually show you the Collin County page that has that. From there, we're going to look at the Power Pages site that I configured. Again, I am not a graphical designer as my primary focus. I would say that my skill set there is fairly low, but I wanted to just kind of mock up a Power Pages site so you could kind of see how the page layout works, kind of see how you can interact with information on that site. And then from there, we're actually going to use Copilot Studio and our generative answers capability to be able to ask random questions of Copilot based on some public documents that are on the county site. And so you can see how you can do self-service where you may not know what the constituent may be asking about. So in the past, and Richa kind of alluded to this, we've always kind of relied on FAQs, and you had to curate those FAQs, and then what happened when it changes. Generative AI really changes that. It just allows us to go point it to a knowledge source, and then it'll answer those questions on our behalf. And then at the very end, we're going to do a Copilot Studio with an IVR, and actually allowing me to call into an IVR, and that's always kind of tricky on a Teams call to make that work. So hopefully we can do that correctly. So so without further ado, let me share my screen and make sure I turn audio on. Okay. So Richa, am I sharing correctly? Maybe not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, I have my little red
Now
box.
we
How
can
about that?
see. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So and Deb, or Richa, will you do me a favor? Go ahead and take me off camera since I'm showing my screen. So one of the things I wanted to do was kind of, as I mentioned in the first part, is there's a lot of different capabilities within Power Platform, and we kind of get access to those a little bit differently depending on kind of what we're trying to do. So in this scenario, I'm starting off with, and I'll kind of hop over to the Collin County site. This is that online application for assumed name that I'm kind of reproducing, okay? And I'll show you when I get to the actual website, the Power Page site in a second, what this looks like. But if you look at this form, you have the ability to kind of toggle this unincorporated versus incorporated. So that's kind of a conditional step, and it's going to ask me different questions on that. But the concept of filling out a form is one of the basic self-service scenarios. in state and local government, we do a lot of forms. We're really good at forms. And actually, if you talk to our engineering group, Power Pages is the most widely used across all industries in state and local government. And one of the reasons why is we do lots and lots of forms. So I wanted to include that in the demo so you could kind of see what that looks like in more of an anonymous type approach. And we'll talk about that. But this is the form that I'm going to recreate. And so in order to do that, I need a custom table. So I've gone back over into Power Apps and I created a custom table called Assume Name. And you can just see some of the columns that I have in here. I have the business name. That would be kind of the equivalent of the who might be the owner of that business. I also have the doing business as that they want. I have the business type. I have the entity type. I have addresses, and I even have a subtable for owners because you have the ability to add one or more owners. So I basically did the schema work in Dataverse to be able to allow me to kind of capture this data. Okay, again, pretty basic stuff from a Dataverse perspective. I then also went out and created a model app, a model Power App. And so, because I'm going to have people that work within the Assume Name office that are going to want to get notified. And if they get notified that there's a new request, they can come into this model app. They don't have to use the portal. They can just come into the model app. They can click on that entry and they can see all the information that was entered by that, by that constituents. And they could go ahead and do their processes to be able to process that data. Okay, so that's kind of this table schema. It's kind of the back office app that we would use. But now let's hop over and let's look at the Power Pages site that I created. And so again, I'm in the Power Pages Design Studio. Richa talked about, our Pages designer, the styling designer, the data workspace. These are all things that make it very easy to be able to, create in a very low code manner, the ability to create these websites. Okay. Now, in some circumstances, Power Pages can use some pro code. So in those scenarios, I do have this edit code button that takes me into Visual Studio Code and lets me write code. Not necessarily needed, but if you want to do some more kind of advanced concepts or extensibility, you can get access to the raw HTML and JavaScript code within inside of Power Pages. Okay. So I kind of have this baseline set up over here. I've kind of set up some navigation elements, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things you'll notice in Power Pages is we're putting Copilot into all of our Power Platform things. So I can very easily use natural language to interact even in the site designer to do things like create pages or create forms or any other Copilot type activity. Okay, so there's my site. Yeah, that's how I go about creating it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump over actually into Chrome. So we support multiple browsers for both creating and for the end product. And so now I have this portal that I have up. And again, you have that navigation. So, assume named as part of the county clerk. So I can come down here and I can just click on that link. It's going to take me out to the county clerk page. And one of the things about Power Pages is, and I had just restarted the site, so it uses caching extensively. So when you first kind of go back to a page, it may take it just a little bit to load while it's rebuilding that cache. But typically this is extremely quick. Okay. Now, so when I went to that assume name page, I'm making some assumptions here. Normally I would have a page with a bunch of information about assume names and how they work and how to apply for them. But in this case, I wanted to show you the ability to display secure data to an individual. Okay. Now, in this scenario, I am logged in anonymously. I'm not signed in. So I wouldn't normally do this in real life, right? If you wanted to see any data that you had previously entered, you're going to want to associate that with a contact and be authenticated, to be able to securely control access to that. But for the purposes of the demo, I just wanted to be able to show how you can, very easily take data from Dataverse and show it within inside of Power Pages. Now, the thing that speeds everything up is all of these lists or these listings of data, these are actually views inside a Dataverse. So I can use the same views or I can create different views for both my model app and my Power Page site. Same thing for forms. I can reuse forms or I can have specific forms that are used for either a model app or a Power Page site. So in this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and click New Application. And this is an example of what we call a multi-step form. And multi-step forms are, I always kind of use the example of the Domino's pizza tracker. When you order from Domino's, you've got that little tracker across the top saying, we received your order, it's in process, it's in the oven, it's in the truck, kind of let you know where that is. Same thing here, and I haven't styled this page at all. This is just strictly out of the box. Through some configuration and styling, I can change the look and feel of this. And in fact, I can change the look and feel of any of this. There's the out-of-the-box styling, but as Richa mentioned, there's also full Bootstrap 5 support. And so if you've got a graphic designer on staff, they're familiar with Bootstrap, you can actually create your entire theme in Bootstrap. I could move this tracker over to the left-hand side, but the reason I created this as a multi-step is that first conditional question was, are you an unincorporated entity or are you an incorporated? So I'm just going to say unincorporated. And the reason I put that step first is the second step is going to vary based on what I put in the first step, right? So I can come in here and just put in some fictitious data. It's always fun doing data entry on a call. Okay. I can select my state, and I can go through, and all these are, in Dataverse, these are just choice fields, right? We support all those same, types of controls that you're used to for a Power App. And for a number of years, I can just choose 10. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and click Process. Now, if this were an authenticated experience, I could at any time stop this process. Let's say I had to go to a meeting and I want to close my browser down. If I were in an authenticated mode, I could come back and pick up this form right at the same spot. Okay. Now that's super important when you look at really complex forms that are 6 or 7 pages that have multiple kind of one-to-manys. But again, that requires authenticated because we need to know who the user is. Okay. Now in this last stop or step 3, this owners is kind of one-to-many. And so I can come in here and I can put, John Doe, and I can put an address. Okay. And I can make these fields required. You can see that name is required. It's got an asterisk on it. None of these other ones are. Okay. You can also do, different validations for a given entry through either lookups or through, regex or any other kind of validation or business rule that we can put on that field. And again, I can, add multiples in here, and these are all kind of, stored at that assume name. Okay. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to submit. And again, all this is being saved in Dataverse at that time. Okay. So if I were to hop over, and I'll do this maybe at the end, if I were to hop over back into that model app, you would see that new test company that I just created. Okay. So that's kind of our first instance of self-service, being able to either, create forms or fill out forms, or even, see access to secure data that's associated to me as an individual, all controlled through what we call table permissions, which is a way for me to safely, segment what data individuals can see. And so again, that's more of the transactional side of the inquiry. But now let me hop over into this concept of, what if I just want to surface knowledge, to the site? So I can do this through a Copilot bot. So I click the little Copilot icon. I get a little greeting, welcome to the Contoso County virtual agent. And now I can kind of ask it a question, right? And so, what is the fee for submitting an online assumed name? Let me spell this correctly. And so what it's doing now is it's going out actually to a public website to basically search that public website and to be able to find that answer that I need for that, for that inquiry, right? And so the way we can do that is that public information, because we have our Bing search engine, we crawl that data automatically. And it wouldn't be a demo if I didn't have some little issue here. So we'll see if the retry. I might come back to this if it's still not working. But basically what happens here is I can send that query in and it will search that repository using generative AI and bring back an answer. And it never fails. I always have some issue. Let me try this again. Yeah, I tested this one earlier, so you can kind of see it here. I'll try it again. But basically, once you create that question, it's going to come back with, yeah, so here we go. So it did that search. It came back with that question. It tells you exactly what the answer is, but it also gives you a reference out to that link on the website with that particular answer. And so the beauty of this is I don't have to think of all the FAQs that somebody might ask. I can just point it to the content on my website, or I can even point it to SharePoint. I can point it to other documentations. I can point it to Dataverse records. I can even, if I want to get very granular, I can point it to an Azure OpenAI model and do even more all right from this particular Copilot. Okay. So last on the demo, we talked about the concept of an IVR. And I'll come back over here. Let's come back over here to my model app while I'm doing this. Yeah, so if I refresh, you'll see that I got that inside of my model app as well. So I'm going to attempt to call the IVR, and then I'm going to walk you through what the IVR shows. So hopefully this audio comes through, and I will be quiet while this plays.
Coastal County Constituent Helpline. Please listen to the following as the options have recently changed. For county clerk information and services, press or say 1. For development service and for assumed name services, press or say 1. For birth certificates, to check on the status of an application, press or say 1. To be transferred to an assumed name, please enter your 5-digit ASUSM name confirmation number followed by the pound sign. The status of your service is active.
Okay, so let me kind of walk you through what I just did. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over into Copilot Studio and okay. So what Copilot Studio, and Richa mentioned this is our low code kind of bot building experience, right? And she mentioned that we can do this for, digital chat channels. We can do this for SMS. We can put it on Teams. We can also tie it to telephony, or in this case, an IVR. And so inside of Copilot Studio, I have this drag and drop canvas that I can very easily tell Copilot Studio how I want that bot, in this case, this conversational bot, to interact. And so what I've done is, and Copilot Studio relies on a concept called topics. And so there is an out-of-the-box topic that we give you that's called conversation start. And when you set up a bot, the first thing it does is it comes into this conversation start. Okay. Now it could come into greeting too, kind of depends on how you're using the bot. But in this case, because I called in from the telephony, it's going to come into this conversation start as a starting point. Now I can also put in some test conditions, and I can use some out-of-the-box variables that are stored within Contoso to verify the channel of how that user is coming into my bot. So in this case, the channel for IVR is called the conversation conductor. And what that tells me is that this path came in from IVR. So I can come down here and you can see, and hopefully you heard in my phone, hello, welcome to Contoso County. And again, all of these messages can be configured. I can add in, data into these, like if I had a variable, or if I happen to, if you had authenticated and I know your first name, I can personalize these. I could say, hello, Doug. And again, I kind of do that through, this concept's called slugs. It's basically a contextual variable that I can add in. And so I can add all that into the message. And so if you follow this path, I came down, I came in from the IVR, I read the message. And because you came in through IVR, I redirected you to a different topic. And so this topic, which is what we call the DTMF main menu topic, this topic is designed for you to be able to use the touch tone aspect of your phone. I could have very easily said, 1 or 2, just using my language. But in this case, I wanted to use it on the phone. And so for each of these different touch tones, and you can see that what got read off for county clerk, press 1, for development, press 2. And then I get these conditions. And then, again, this is all kind of drag and drop, no code required. I can go through here and kind of just step through what I wanted to do. So for county clerk, I said for a new assumed name services, press 1. And so now you can see, and I'm just kind of scrolling down through each of these, right? And so again, I chose 1. Now I get down to the check on the status, choose 1. So that's the route that I took. And so I can keep kind of coming down through these. And so finally I get to the status search. And basically what the status search allows me to do, and I've actually kind of redirected to another topic for this, because I may search status coming in from another channel, like a website, for example, but I've now switched over into that topic. And so now you'll see Copilot Studio ask me for the 5 digits. I can accept the DTMF for those 5 digits. I can say what my termination key is. And here, this is where the real magic is get service status. I'm actually calling a Power Automate flow, and I'm passing in the confirmation number that I collected through DTMF, and I'm returning the status of that back to this. And then in this last message, I can basically say, the status of your service was active, right? And that comes back to this active right here that was stored in status reason. Okay. So just to kind of, finish up and wrap up, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. Richard, can you go back? Can you pull up the slides again and just take us back?
Yep, just
Come
a
back on camera.
second. There we go.
Yeah. So just a couple of things in summary, and then we'll see if there's any questions. But and I think Richard mentioned both of these, or most of these, but self-service really provides the ability to get that secure access to data and respect channel preferences. I always tell a story. I have 2 girls, 27 and 24. They never talk to a human being. They want to do everything through text or chat or something else, or TikTok or whatever it might be, right? They're not going to pick up the phone and call somebody unless they have to. And so we support that through that channel preference. And then the big thing is 24/7 support, 365, being able to scale during, disaster situations or even unique situations, maybe some policy change is driving a lot of traffic. And so all those things I can scale to self-serve without adding additional humans, in a very short time frame. In fact, really automatically. And then I didn't cover this, but lastly, I can always escalate as well. So you can escalate to a live agent through digital chat or through voice if you need to, regardless of how you kind of come in. If I came in through IVR, I can escalate to a live agent through voice. If I came in through the website or digital chat or SMS, I can, escalate to a live agent through one of those channels as well. And then last but not least, all this is done in a single low-code platform. No best of breeds, putting a bunch of stuff together. All this is within Power Platform. Now, a couple of things. IVR, the ability to IVR in Copilot is a commercial preview feature. So not yet in our sovereign clouds in GCC, but is coming. And so again, and that applies to Dynamics as well for live agent voice, inside of customer service. Those things are on their way to sovereign clouds. So again, self-serve across channels very easily, and hopefully we'll cover all your different use cases.
Doug, before we
Richard,
pass on to
yeah.
Deb, there are a few questions, and I figured we would have some time